It actually is a little, which one do you think is less likely for students to actually see? The yes/no cards or like the thumb doing this? Because you can do it real fast, you know. And because nobody can really, if you get them in, then it's a game with how fast you can see it and how fast they can do it. And they're probably going to do it faster than you can see it. Just because they're young and they want to beat you. They want to, you know, it's a game. Everything's a game with kids, so you can make it a game if you want to. But you can thumb it time. After you teach a concept, you move on. You don't have to make a big production of it, and you keep thinking, and you keep on going. Now we're looking at some differentiated strategies. And so all strategies are aligned with instructional goals and objectives. And we're going to look at some activities that you can do. Now it's bubblegum time, okay? And so we're going to do a differentiated activity, and then you're going to have to figure out how we can differentiate this before I even show you some of the strategies. So now you have some gum at your table, and if you all would open up the gum and start chewing, but you can only chew the gum that's at your table. Yeah, and chew the gum. You already have yours. Just one. That's a good question. That's a good question. Because everybody can only have one piece. They busted you?
But they all participated.
They saw you? Oh, they were chewing too?
First.
Oh, and then, oh.
But I took the grade.
Oh, I got caught. I only saw you chewing.
But,
see, that's what happens in the classroom.
Yeah, but she actually,
and they didn't come to your rescue?
No.
And I started. It was your civic responsibility to be honored.
She said, pass me the gum.
Oh, I'm so disappointed.
I had to clear the air on that one.
Thank you. If one goes down, you all go down.
All going down.
Okay, that's a shame. That's kind of a shame to have that feeling. All right, so now what you need is a ruler. So you need to pick up a ruler. And we're going to make believe we've been chewing this gum for a few minutes. What's the flavor of your gum over there? Who?
Classy bubble?
No, but is it Bubblicious? What's the name of it? It's just extra, all right? So we have a group that, let's call them extra. And this group right here, what kind of gum do you have?
Bazooka.
Bazooka. Do I have another bazooka group? So you're by yourself. All right, so let's say they're Bazooka. That's just your name. What's the name of your gum?
Bubblicious.
Bubblicious. All right. And so the name of your group is Bubblicious. It is?
Yes, ma'am.
Bubblicious one. We're strawberry.
Bubblicious one, strawberry.
Our sour apple.
And your sour apple. So those are our 4 groups. Now, what you're going to have to do is blow your bubble gum in as big a bubble as you can.
Oh my gosh.
And when you blow the bubble, your table mate is going to have to measure the bubble. Okay? Now, we don't have time, but imagine that we do this 10 times. Okay? So take about 2 minutes and blow bubbles, and you might have to jump up. If you know you don't blow very well, then go measure the other person's bubble. So, before you put it back in, put the gum back in. Which gum do you think is it going to blow the biggest bubble? Is it extra, bazooka, Bubblicious strawberry, or Bubblicious sour apple? Which one do you think is going to blow the biggest bubble?
Bubblicious strawberry.
You think Bubblicious strawberry is going to blow the biggest bubble? All right? Whatever you think is going to blow the biggest bubble, that is your hypothesis. So at your group, with that piece of bubblegum paper that you have, I want you to write, I mean, it's already written there. We think the type of bubble gum that will blow the biggest bubble is, write it down, and then say why. Why do you think that extra is going to blow the biggest bubble? Why do you think bazooka is going to blow the biggest bubble? Now, if I was in a classroom, yeah, you can write on there. I might not want to lead the conversation. The directions are really self-explanatory for someone to be able to do, that you have right there. And they look just like this, except there's not a graph on them. All right? So just let's take a minute and measure the gum. I just want to have a couple of measurements real quickly. So go ahead and blow the bubble, and let's see who comes up with the biggest bubble. But you got to have your ruler ready to measure their bubble gum.
No.
That's how in trouble.
She is bad influence.
Oh, you can do better than that. Come on now.
Amount of 7 centimeters, 7 inches, about 3. And yours is 2.5.
Uh-oh, somebody needs to get a sheet.
Oh, she won. Oh, my.
Oh, wow. Melissa.
I'm done. I think she won.
All right. So did you get a couple of measurements? Now imagine that we measured. We're not going to have enough time to do this, but look at this. So now we have our experiment design. So we've chewed our gum for 10 minutes, and some people have chewed it for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, okay? And so we would have, let's say, blown our bubble about 3 times. And then you measured it, but then you have to record all the bubbles. Can you imagine how long that would take in the classroom? All right? But some teachers actually couldn't use bubble. You gotta have a class where you've taught the rules, and you feel secure that they're able to handle the bubble gum. Because believe it or not, even people at this level have some problems when I do the bubble gum activity. All right, so you then, once you've averaged it out, what was the biggest measurement you had on this group? 3 inches? All right, this group? 2 inches?
Hers was 3.5.
3.5?
We had a 3.5 and a 4.
So 4. So Bubblicious Sour Apple, they are the winners because they blew the biggest bubble. So our conclusion is that Bubblicious Sour Apple Bubblegum had the biggest average. The average size for Bubblicious Sour Apple is 4 inches. And the Bubblicious Sour Apple group, the extra group had the second highest. And then you go through each one of the groups and you can write them down. Now, no matter if you're high level functioning or lower level functioning, could you handle this activity?
Yes.
All right? Those are the enriching activities you need to come up with in a classroom. I'm using bubblegum as an example, but you might want to think of other ways that you can do activities. So look at this activity that is in front of you. Can't remember if I passed this out or not. And I don't take my gum. So you can chew one more, but don't take the whole pack of gum, unless you just need some gum later on. All right, now look at this differentiated instruction bubblegum project. So if you look at, since we have 4 groups, I want you to look at how can you differentiate this lesson. But you're not going to do it right this second, because I'm going to be showing some other strategies. But I want you to have it in mind, because this is what you're going to do in order to leave today. You can't leave until you differentiate my bubblegum project activity. And so this group, you're going to be looking at bubblegum and more, the history of bubblegum. This group is going to be looking at writing a story including facts about bubblegum. This group will look at a science project, or what are the ingredients, and you're looking at it from a mathematical perspective, all right? How can I use math in differentiating my lesson? So think about that, because now we're going to be looking at some strategies. And on the back, in case you ever really did this, are some fun facts. I just went on the web and found fun facts about bubblegum, things you never thought of. I had to pick something that I don't think many of you know about bubblegum. So just to give you an idea of what you can do. So any questions about my bubblegum science project? So now, back to the classroom, we're looking at a strategy. So one of the things that you can do, if you look in your handout, there's something called adapt instruction. In your fourth box, if you haven't done it already, if you would write the word strategies, and that's what we're talking about now, are some strategies in this fourth box. Dr. Andy Ninja gave me the thumb up. See, so it's amazing how the things just kind of transfer as people are. So if you have to leave me early, you need to let me know how it's going. All right, there you go. All right, so on page 3 is the adapt box, and you can kind of see how that will work later. You're in a classroom, and you need to figure out how am I going to meet the needs of my students while they're having problems. You can't do this with everybody, but with some of your students who are having problems, this is what a great activity to do to help you differentiate. And it's called the ADAPT framework. So the A in ADAPT is ask. What am I requiring the students to do? All right? It could be anything. All right? So it might be ask questions. It might be learn the 3 branches of government. It might be writing a complete sentence. But you would be looking at your curriculum, your standard course of study, your Common Core, trying to figure out what is it that I'm trying to get across and what are my students having difficulty. So ask yourself, what do I want my students to do? And then what are the prerequisite skills? What skill set do they need in order to do this? Because what happens, teachers frequently say, oh, students can't do this, they can't do that. But they don't think through, well, what is it that they need in order to get the task done, completed? So I might say, a lot of my students speak grammatically incorrect. Now I can say that 10,000 times. But then I need to look at, well, what is it that is it the subject-verb agreement? What is it that they're having problems with? Then I need to go back and say, okay, well, that's the problem. What am I going to do to help them master this particular concept? So that's why I need to write down the prerequisite and then analyze where are my students having struggles and where are they successful. That's the A in analyze. And then propose, once I know that I have task analyzed what they need, I know what their strengths are, I know what their struggles are, now I have to come up with how am I going to implement, how am I going to adapt, how am I going to differentiate what I'm doing. So I'm going to have to look at my content, I'm going to have to look at the materials, I'm going to have to look at my delivery, and I'm going to have to look at the activities. And then I create and make those adaptations based on where my students are. And then afterwards, I have to assess, I have to test to see, did this actually help my students? And so that model there is for you to think about with those students who are really struggling in your class, and they just don't seem to be grasping the content. All right, so we're still on this one for develop a repertoire of instructional teaching strategies. So you should already have that written down there. And these are things that you kind of have to think about when you're planning the strategies that you're learning. You have to ask yourself, what do I want students to know or be able to do as a result of this learning experience? Who's going to judge their success? What is it that is an emotional hook? Now, could the bubble gum activity be an emotional hook for science or math? Definitely. So think about what's your emotional hook. What are you going to do to hook them prior to your learning? Their learning, rather. How are they going to practice? They've got to practice the skills, or it's not going to become a part of their long-term memory. When you learn how to ride a bike, did you just ride it one time and get it? No, I wish. I still got scratches on my knees from falling off the bike when I first learned how to ride 10 years ago. But how will they receive ongoing feedback during and after the learning? How can attention be captured and sustained? And then your strategies. You might use problem-based learning. You might use graphic organizers. You've got to figure out what are those things that I'm going to use. But we're going to look at 3 types of strategies: choice boards, tiered activities, and learning contracts. You have in your presence a menu. It's yellow. So pull out your menu, the yellow menu on your table. It's a menu. And I'm thinking about perhaps part 2 of my differentiated workshop. The people who came is actually having dinner for them. So pick out what you'd like and tell me what you'd like for our dinner when you come back. Because the only people that can attend the dinner are the people that are here. So what would you like for dinner? What do you want as your appetizer? Yeah. They pay me real well here. See, if Dr. Vargas was here, I'd say he was paying for it, but he's not here. So what kind of salad do you want?
A bib lettuce and box pear.
Did you pick the most expensive one? Of course. Why did you get the $5 salad? You can't eat organic mixed greens?
I wanted to try something new.
Of course, on my dime, you want to try something new. All right. For your entree, what would you like? Did y'all pick the most expensive thing? I can't see. Huh? No? All right. So you got what you want for your entree. Do you want dessert?
No.
No dessert?
Yes.
All right. You can have sweet potato bread pudding, key lime pie, chocolate chess pie, or vanilla and chocolate ice cream.
Ice cream.
Ice cream. All right. You think, will that be enough to? You need something to drink? Yeah. Water for everybody.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't need all that sugar. You just need water. I'll give you a little lemon too. I'll throw in lemons. And you want some sweet tea? Soup too? When you go out, do you buy soup for yourself?
Yes.
You buy all that? No, you don't. You're just doing that because I'm paying. All right, do you like having choices?
Yes.
Well, guess what? Children need choices too. So when you're creating activities, you need to give them choices. So imagine you're teaching about photosynthesis. And so, when you go out to eat and you get an appetizer and people at the table may share, well, that's the same way you have to think about everyone might do that one thing, write the chemical equation for photosynthesis. But in differentiated instruction, everyone doesn't have to do the same thing. So you pick one entree, and students might decide they're going to draw a picture, somebody else might create a wrap. But I'm looking at all my learning styles in the classroom, and I'm coming up with different ways to help my students be successful. And I want to give them a variety of experiences, a variety of learning experiences. And then I might do a side dish, and they can pick at least 2 from those. Which ones would you pick? Define, because that one, see why you need to do 2? Because somebody's going to automatically pick that first one. But then we need to make sure they have something a little more challenging. So what might be the next one? Why do you pick the first one? Just, no interest. All right. What would be another one? I would want to do the last one. Yes, because I have a partner. So that's, I'm a people person. I would want to work in a group. And I always want to go first. Don't ask me why. You can probably figure it out why I would want to go first. With a partner, create and perform a skit that shows the differences between photosynthesis and respiration. Would they be able to show depth of knowledge in doing that activity? Most definitely. because they're showing depth. If they're understanding it, then they can find another way to share it. But one, define, they can just go to the internet, find it, write it, and that doesn't mean that they understand. But when you've got to act out, role play something, you are demonstrating your knowledge base in a different way. And then dessert might be optional, and you can come up with your own. Now look again in your packet, and there's an example that we're going to, let me show you one more before we look at the example. All right, tic-tac-toe. I love this as differentiated instruction. It requires a little bit of time, and that's what you have an example of in your packet. But what you might want to do is come up with activities that you can do. You want everyone to do a book report. That's not differentiated. So everybody in the class, you're doing a book report. But to differentiate, you want to give them choices. And in giving them choices, they might draw a picture of the main character. They might make a poster that shows the order of the events in the story. They might write 2 paragraphs about the setting. So you're also teaching them or reminding them about tic-tac-toe. And they've got to follow those rules of tic-tac-toe, and they pick one of those on the diagonal. They might go straight up and down, and so they have to draw a picture, write a poem, create a Venn diagram. So they would pick which one, again, choices of what they want to do. So in your handout, there are examples of the tic-tac-toe that is used, if I had high school folks here, with Romeo and Juliet. And there's an example in there that you can go back and look at later of the tic-tac-toe that looks at character, setting, and theme. Irrespective of grade level, students have to know about elements of a story. No matter if you're in elementary school or you're in high school. You have to know setting, you have to know rising action, you have to know falling action, you have to know resolution. So it doesn't matter. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Harrison, I was just curious about something. Now, if you're teaching math, for example, and students need to know how to divide, if you have all of these levels in your classroom, which statistically you will, and you use the bus and the bicycle and the airplane, and you say, well, you may get there at a different point.
And they will, because they're all at different points in the classroom anyway.
But if you have a goal and you have a certain time, say for example, you say, after this week, we have to move on to another concept. But the students on the bicycle still, they haven't gotten there yet. What do you do?
You have reinforcement. You have people that may come and work with the students one-on-one. You may have homework packets that go home. But you have to build whatever that intervention is to help them get that concept. So that's why you want to present a variety of ways. You, as a teacher, would go back and look at ADAPT, what I just showed you. That's a prime example. So you would go back and say, well, what skill set do they need? So you have to break down division. Do they not understand multiplication? Are they having problems with addition, subtraction? Do they understand what division means? Have you thoroughly? You got to go back and be introspective and say, did I teach these concepts, or did I make some assumptions about where they are? And that's when ADAPT is used. That's the primary place. And you're going to come up with, what's my little strategy, what are my strategies that I'm going to use to make sure that they master the division. That's a tough concept. And a lot of times when teachers are teaching math, they don't understand math themselves. They may understand it, but they don't. Boys and girls, today we're going to start talking about addition. 1 + 1 is 2. You haven't told me what addition is. You just have these numbers up there, but you didn't tell me that addition is really just putting things together. So we might put things together by putting people together. I might get some cereal in my classroom and show them how when you put this cereal, these 2 pieces together, and these 2 pieces, that we have 4 pieces. It's putting things together. They've got to conceptualize putting things together. And then once they understand putting things together, then we can move from from concrete to abstract. But that doesn't happen a lot of times because you weren't presented it that way. We don't present division that way. We don't present multiplication and putting groups together. That's all it is. But it doesn't come out that way. So children struggle mightily in math. Children will not learn what you don't know. If you don't know it, they're not going to know it. can't teach what you don't know. I mean, some may try, but they may not succeed. So, and many have, and many are still doing that, and that's why some of us aren't too strong in math. So, could you do think-tac-toe? Can you create those activities? This is our tiered activity. And so, in a tiered activity, I have my different levels. So I have my beginning, my intermediate, my advanced. And so my outcome in my writing a persuasive essay might be students will determine a topic and will write a 5-sentence paragraph with the main idea, 3 supporting sentences, and a concluding sentence. And my intermediate, they'll determine a topic, state a point of view, and write 2 paragraphs defending the point of view. My advanced, they'll determine the topic, state a point of view, write an essay, at least 5 paragraphs that use multiple sources to defend that point of view. As teachers, we don't want to pile it high and deep for, let's say these were academically gifted students. We want to make sure that we're differentiating their instruction and we're challenging them, but it doesn't have to be piled high. It tickles me how teachers frequently talk about how, oh yeah, I gave them 5 more assignments to do. Well, those 5 more assignments, they could have probably done it in 2 assignments. It didn't necessarily mean that you had to pile it high and deep. Our older son was in AG class, and I had to very professionally communicate that to the AG teacher, that she was getting homework that lasted about 2 hours. I don't have a problem with homework lasting 2 hours, but it was no different than his regular ed teacher, what she was giving him that was only taking about 30 minutes, but the depth of it was so much deeper. And so trying to convey